We had multiple shock WWE title changes last night, plus an Ex-TNA star is getting a SmackDown call-up, and future plans for the TNA World title have been revealed. It's all in the Cultaholic wrestling news right now. Shocking night on NXT last night, not one but two brand new champions crowned. One kinda caught me off guard, one very much caught me off guard.
It's the same, exactly the same. It was a mad show.
Mad.
What's going on there in that NXT? Somebody was pointing out on either the subreddit or on the Twitter that it very much makes sense when you remember that this episode was supposed to be a kind of a run-on from Battleground. It was going to be in an arena, a big arena and everything. Then they cancelled that, took it back to the Performance Center, but seem to have kept it as quite a big, shocking show, as you've said.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That makes more sense in terms of what went down. Let's talk about the most shocking one of all. We have a new NXT Women's Champion in the form of Jacy Jayne. So she challenged Stephanie Vaquer last night after a little backstage altercation at Battleground, and it was at the conclusion of the match where Jacy Jayne was caught in like an armbar with Stephanie Vaquer draped over the rope, and while Stephanie Vaquer was left very vulnerable, here comes Valon Henley with sort of like a Tiger Fane kick round the turnbuckle post.
Effort. Yeah.
That boots old Stephanie in the head. This leads to a discus punch by Jacy Jayne and the 1-2-3. And everybody was rocked and shocked by that, including Mike Rome, the ring announcer, who forgot to ring announce. It's one job of the night.
In character he did, but I think the camera was on him quickly. The camera made sure to catch him not being able to react, which rang a few alarm bells in my noggin, Tom. But no, it was a well executed shock. Whether or not you agree with the substance of the booking decision, I guess, because this felt very much like a bait and switch. Over the past few weeks, we've had very overt, obvious tension between Jacy Jayne and her stablemate Valon Henley. Jasmine Nix has been off camera for a while. She came back on this episode. Midway through the match, the two of them are arguing, Jacy and Fallon on the outside after a miscommunication. And then she tries to play peacekeeper and they just shove her over. And it looks like this is going to end up costing Jacy the match. And then the very opposite ends up happening. It's quite a strange one. I wonder if we'll get any sort of follow-up, whether they faked this disagreement all along or whether... I don't know.
That would be so... Triple H booking.
Well,
it was a setup all along.
Shawn Michaels booking.
It's Shawn Michaels that books it, but it would be a very Triple H move. It was a set. We were pretending that we hated each other, so you would fall into our cunning trap.
Possibly. I think it all depends on what happens next. I mean, there's talk that there's been reports that maybe one or both of Stephanie and Jordynne Grace could be moving up to the main roster.
Well, this is kind of where we're going with this next. So in terms of what is up next for Stephanie Vaquer and an ex-TNA star, Corey Hayes reporting that according to WWE sources, Stephanie Vaquer losing the title because she is off to Monday nights coming up very, very soon. She is Raw bound, and also former TNA Knockouts World Champion Jordynne Grace, who has really made herself very comfortable at NXT. Shouldn't be comfortable for long because Jordynne Grace, according to sources close to WWE, speaking to Corey Hayes, Jordynne Grace is off to SmackDown.
Yes, and a strange thing I've found recently, and this would definitely add to this sort of trend in NXT, is that these days, especially since Triple H took over the main roster, and you'd think he'd have more of a handle on this, weirdly, storylines in NXT don't seem to wrap up as neatly when somebody's about to graduate to the main roster. Like Roxanne Perez is an example in the opposite way, where she finished all her major storylines and was just kind of hanging around and then was eventually called up. This very much feels like this could even be too soon. Stephanie Vaquer has lost the title in extremely surprising, kind of short-sighted fashion. And she might be straight up as well. Jordynne Grace feels like she's barely been on NXT. Not that she's one of those ones who maybe didn't even need to be on NXT in the first place, but it does feel a little bit maybe untidy. I don't want to use that word because obviously the main roster is the priority, but it all feels this was a major shock, Tom, this result.
It really was, and it could be to facilitate two call-ups that we talked about there. The other shock title change last night was in the NXT North American title picture. It's Ethan Page now representing as the new NXT North American champion. He beat Ricky Saints last night. A wild match between those two.
In a very NXT fashion, though.
Very NXT fashion.
We had, this feud was kind of like, it featured the GM Ava as sort of the third main character of the feud, where she'd constantly be telling these lads off for having, to a wrestling fan, what seemed like quite rudimentary brawls on the outside, but she was suddenly acting like this was the worst possible thing. You can't be doing that, either of you. This match was set up. Security got involved, I think, 3 times to break them apart, even though it wasn't particularly out of the ordinary. Ava came down at ringside, told the referee this match needs a finish, and then she just walked off, and the announce team were going, is it no DQ? I don't think so. It all felt quite haphazard. And then they're getting separated for the 3rd time by security on the outside. There's just a stray chair that's been knocked on it. Very well done, to be fair. I didn't even realize it was there. Knocked upside down but open in the middle of the pair of them. And Ethan Page hits a quick cutter onto the open chair. Ricky Saints sells the throat very hard, and it leads directly to the finish a bit later on, because he then twangs the top rope into Ricky Saints' throat again, and that leads to him getting the win.
Yeah, and just like that, Ethan Page is now the new NXT North American champion. He was celebrating a little later on as the new champ, and he was interrupted by his challengers for his first title offense. At WWE AAA Worlds Collide, Ethan Page is going to put the NXT North American title on the line against Javon Evans, Ray Phoenix, and Laredo Kid. So a bit of a multi-promotional 4-way dream match scenario shenanigan there.
And Ava said as much in a later backstage segment, because Stevie Turner, who's now the GM of Evolve, was complaining. She was going, well, what about Sean Legacy, a big Evolve standout who's recently appeared on NXT? She was going, you've kind of overlooked him for these other 3 challenges. And Ava said, well, I wanted someone from TNA, someone from Raw or SmackDown, and someone from NXT all in this match. But the winner of the match will then have to defend it against Sean Legacy. So that's been set up for even further in the future as well.
I think they had Laredo Kid representing AAA. I think the AAA logo
Sorry,
appeared.
AAA, sorry.
But he has done TNA, so you're forgiven for thinking
yes,
that.
of course. He said in his little promo bit that he's won titles in AAA and in TNA. And I was like, I've been bamboozled.
you have been flim-flammed, meine Freunde. So that's happening at Worlds Collide, also confirmed for Worlds Collide. Steffi Vaquera is going to be in action there. She's going to be teaming up with Lola Vice to face Chick Tormenta and Dallas.
Yes, Tom, that segment was hilarious. It was when Stephanie's getting ready for her match, for her title defense, where she would lose the title to JC Jane. Ava comes in and goes, I know you're getting ready for your match, Stephanie. Just to let you know, you're going to be having this tag match at Worlds Collide. You'll need to find a partner. And she went, don't worry, Ava, I will find a partner. And then from off camera, I'll be your partner. And Lola Vice walked in and went, we can do this. And they both just sort of stood there. I was like, this was a weird episode of NXT, this one. It was kind of chaotic.
I prefer the way you described it to what I saw. I think.
No,
I enjoyed the way you described it.
That was immensely accurate, Tom. That's exactly what happened.
That's why I enjoyed it all the more. So that is going down at Worlds Collide, as is a trios match with Santos Escobar, Angel Umberto taking on Psycho Clown, Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. and Pagano. And the AAA Mega Championship on the line, maybe. Vikingo defending it. The title he's not yet won against Chad Gable.
And we saw a little bit of that escalate on Raw as well, didn't we? Of course, where Chad Gable attacked Vikingo in the front row. Vikingo then cost him that qualifier match for Money in the Bank. It's all heating up nicely. I think of all the matches, that could well be the show stealer of the night.
I think it might be very much so. So lots of other titles from other companies being defended in and around WWE stratosphere at the moment. And here's another one. The TNA World Championship, now held by Trick Williams. What does the future hold in store for the TNA title?
Well, he appeared to celebrate his big title victory on last night's episode, but was interrupted pretty quickly by TNA's Mike Santana, formerly of, if you're an AEW fan, you might remember him from The Proud and Powerful. You might remember him if you're a TNA fan from before that as well.
LAX.
Appearing in various different promotions and now breaking out in the past few years as a single star. They had a bit of a promo battle. Trick's being very arrogant now. I think he's fully heel. He said, I've turned on the crowd because the crowd turned against me, which the crowd disagreed with. It's not entirely true. And then Mike Santana cut, I think, a very good promo. It wasn't the cleanest promo ever. It was kind of rough around the edges. He was stumbling a bit, but I think it just made it seem more real. And that matched up well with what he was saying, because he was like, Trick, you're the biggest phony I've ever seen. You're a fake rapper. You're a fake fighter. Everything about you is fake. I'm as real as it gets. And he was cutting it in kind of a realism-based, kind of Eddie Kingston-ish sort of way. And it was a really nice juxtaposition between the two.
This led to the TNA Director of Authority, Santino Marella, appearing on the screen. Obviously, the TNA World title is his jurisdiction, so therefore, next week on NXT, Trick Williams defends the TNA World title against Mike Santana.
And we've got a wonderful Santino Marella, you know when you get someone's name wrong in hilarious fashion. This one sounded like a character from the Tom Campbell Extended Universe. He called him Tricky William. Yeah. Oh, Tricky William, you'll be defending the title.
I loved Tricky
William sounds like someone from your Retro Raw review.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Tricky William does pop up somewhere and he is just a rambunctious little character.
Yeah,
oh, it's Tricky William.
Tricky William.
Haven't paid your car tax. Oh, Tricky William.
Yes.
Like, that's Tricky William.
Yeah.
Look out for Tricky William on a classic review near you.
With his tag partner, Dodgy Steve.
Dodgy Steve, who isn't dodgy at all, but he's just really violent. Tricky William and Dodgy Steve going to a classic review near you. And I'll tell you what, Nick Nemeth had some choice words about Joe Hendry losing that TNA World title when him and I had a chat last night.
Oh my goodness me.
I had a chat with the Nemeths and I asked Nick Nemeth for a comment on Joe Hendry losing the TNA title. Not a happy camper about it. And he suggested that he might call some sort of town hall meeting at TNA this week.
Ooh.
Or maybe even bring back Wrestlers Court to address the Joe Hendry situation.
I guess they're looking at it as he has disgraced the brand by losing to an NXT superstar.
Yeah, Nick Nemeth in our conversation saying as much as you have to celebrate Joe Hendry's highs, you have to also acknowledge the lows, and this is a low. You can hear the full interview I did with Nick and Ryan Nemeth. We talk about, obviously, the Joe Hendry situation. We talk about them winning the World Tag Team titles. And I also find out how they would fare against other great tag teams from history, such as the Steiner Brothers, great brother tag teams this is, the Steiner Brothers, Harlem Heat, the Super Mario Brothers, and Frazier and Niles Crane.
Oh, of course.
The obvious brothers.
A very cerebral tag team.
Very cerebral, very cerebral. Find out how they get on. And hear the whole thing on the Cultaholic Wrestling News podcast feed a little later on today. Are you twitching tonight?
No, Owen is a poorly boy.
For the very latest wrestling news at any time. Get well soon, Owen.
Get well soon, Owen.
Oh,
I've heard from him. He's all right. He's just a bit poorly, but yeah, he'll be all right.
Be well soon, sir. For the latest wrestling news at any time, you can check out cultaholic.com. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.